So then we are back with the more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, and the scripture used is then the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of Yahweh, indicating for us then the understanding of the time of the end. And as then we begin to read then Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter, we understand the prophecy related with the holy cities returning, and then obviously the time of restoration and reduction, and then the place where then the holy city is going to be at. Now the question is, are the people then saved, those who never were taught properly the second holy services? Those people are lost. There is nothing a person can do, because the Messiah came to complete the services of his Father. This means the holy rotations of the Levites of the first tabernacle service, in order for salvation to be available, must be then active, otherwise there is no salvation. There are those who are of the Messiah, then obviously pointing the way, and those people obviously are saved. However, those people who are never taught the tabernacles, those people are not. And there is a reason why when we read then in Zechariah, the understanding of 10 Gentiles would get a hold of the garment of the Hebrew person and would demand teachings, and obviously they won't, because they are obviously involved with a specific objective, because the teaching of the living Torah as Galain or Galah is going to be given to Gentiles. And then you begin to understand it's not because of the great name of the Creator, it's because people are realizing they are not saved. That's why then the name Yahweh is going to be very known in the near future. And then many people think, oh, because they were never taught, how can then be not saved? There is then obviously in the scripture a set of steps of formation where then those people who were never heard the tabernacling, those people are not saved. They were born during the time of the seat, and then the seat does not save the person. That's why then when we read in Zechariah, 10 people would get a hold of the garment of the Hebrew, gives you that they have to come to the realization that they are not saved. So then our quest then comes, and then people must understand the tabernacles. That's the whole point of the scripture, where we find then the vast majority of the world not saved, and then people taking their time and then updating their data, because they are with the world, and the God of the world has blinded them from sound doctrine. That's why then Shaliach Shaul many times he was persecuted, and then people would not believe him. And we are replete, this nation is repleted with false teachers, false prophets, false evangelists, pastors, teachers. Those people are teaching what they don't know. And if they do know, they should be teaching the tabernacles rather than trying to make a name for themselves. So then, rather than speaking lies, we then are speaking the truth. This means sound doctrine. So then, where is the evidence of this point? 2 Corinthians 11:4 speaks of then the Hebraic saved in the Messiah, given then directives of salvation. Because Shaliach Shaul, obviously he was delegating responsibilities to his people, and then they would cluster, form holy cities, and in turn they would save the Gentiles. So the Gentiles, they thought they were saved during the time of the seed. They were not. They were not saved. So then people have the obligation, if they are having any kind of understanding of salvation and what it means, because a person only knows when a person is saved after a person dies, and then the soul goes straight down to Sheol, then there is late to return. There is no returning from Sheol, and then what comes next is the second death. So then people are then becoming more aware of they are not saved. They have been given a scripture is scoundrelized or then twisted from the time of deceit, and they have believed the Messiah outside of the Holy of Holies, the Holy Tabernacles, and they are not saved. That's why then when we read Zechariah, we find then 10 people would get a hold of the garment of the Hebrew, say, we know that, Yahweh is with you, and then He is the means of salvation. So then people are updating their data more often because they understand they are not saved so far. And those people, because they think they are decent, means they are saved. They are not saved whatsoever. Because the Messiah said Himself, speaking of Himself as a tabernacle, He said, how can you then, being evil, know how to give understandings to your children? How can you then, you give the understanding of having a family and having the humdrum of life, you understand how to give comfort and convenience to your children, you yourselves being evil, and then rejecting Him as the tabernacle. This is what the Messiah is speaking of. People, they make their own kingdom outside of the whole understanding of the tabernacles. There is no meaning of salvation. There is no salvation in it. Salvation comes first with an understanding of the first tabernacle service, the first menorah, second tabernacle services, second menorah, and then you have to explain revelation. If you are a person then revealed by God, you have to understand revelation. Otherwise you are not revealed, meaning you are in dark places. You are not of the light. So then the Messiah gives us the understanding of Himself, so then we can teach other people, and then galah them so they can be galad and be revealed themselves and be saved. Because so far there are thousands upon thousands thinking so far they are saved when they are not. And the Messiah explains why. But please stay tuned, much more coming up, because they are going to explore more areas then of Shaliach Shaul and in the plan of salvation than related with the Gentiles. Please stay tuned.